We begin our celebration with a discussion on Pacino's first love, the theater. Pacino has returned to his roots in the theater consistently throughout his film career, turning in some of his most striking and potent performances in productions as diverse as Eugene O'Neill's Huey, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, Ira Lewis's Chinese Coffee, and Dennis McIntyre's National Anthem, just to name a few. In fact, before entering the world of film, Pacino won an Obie Award for Best Supporting Actor in 1968 for his performance in The Indian Wants the Bronx, a Best Supporting Actor Tony Award in 1969 for Does a Tiger Wear a Necktie, and finally a Best Actor Tony in 1977 for David Rabe's The Basic Training of Pavlo Hummel. Our first guest this evening, Thomas G. Waits, has worked on stage with Pacino on 3 occasions, in 1979's Broadway production of Richard III, and in 1980 and 1982 with a highly acclaimed production of David Mamet's American Buffalo. Mr. Waits also appeared with Pacino as Jeff McCullough in Norman Jewison's And Justice for All. He is an esteemed member of the Actors Studio and a Juilliard graduate. His resume is littered with many extraordinary films and performances, including The Warriors, John Carpenter's The Thing, Light of Day, State of Grace, Born on the 4th of July, and Money Train. His highly prolific television career includes roles in Miami Vice, NYPD Blue, Oz, Law and Order, and many others. In addition to his film and television work, he also owns and operates his own tremendously successful acting studio in New York City. Al Pacino has called him a great actor with a beautiful talent, and it is our pleasure to welcome to the show actor, playwright, director, and teacher, Mr. Thomas G. Waits. Mr. Waits.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for the introduction.
Oh, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it so much.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Now, how long had you been working professionally before you fell into the collaboration with Pacino and Richard III?
Well, it happened pretty early on for me. I was very fortunate. I first met Al when he was originally going to do Born on the 4th of July. Before Tom Cruise did it, Al was supposed to do it with Oliver Stone directing and a director by the name of Daniel Petrie.
Right.
And I was auditioning for a character in that. I think the character's name was Tim. And I went in to the office to audition, and I auditioned with him, and there I was, just out of acting school, and the great Al Pacino sitting across from me, and I was paralyzed with like awe.
I bet.
And yet he was so gracious and so humble, and he worked with me, and we did the scene, and they ended up shelving the project for the time being, and then they did And Justice for All instead, and they brought me in for that. I got that, and I went down and I worked with Al in Baltimore, and then a few months later they called me to come in and audition for Richard III, and that was the beginning of my relationship with him.
Oh, great. The production of Richard III actually took place, the absolute height of his fame. This was 1979 when he'd already done Godfather films and Dog Day and Serpico. It seems kind of to happen more often nowadays for American actors of his stature to return to the stage, but was this uncommon during that period of time in the 70s?
Well, I think it was uncommon for him to do Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was the anomaly. It was that, all of a sudden this, known great actor was, had the courage, screwed up the courage to go out and attack a role like Richard III. And, it was a tremendously challenging production, but ultimately very successful. And I'll tell you an interesting story about that is the day I was leaving Richard III, I went down to his dressing room to say goodbye, and I put a copy of American Buffalo on his dressing table, and I said, I think you should do this play. And, he hardly knew me, really. I mean, we sort of knew each other, but we'd worked together, and, he always liked me. He was always very good to me. And he just stared at the script like, who is this kid putting this script on my dressing table? And then sure enough, about 6 months later, they called me to go over to his apartment to do a read-through of it. And then we read through it, and then I didn't hear anything, which is very common in this business. You do things, and then you don't hear anything for a long time, and you think, well, that's never going to happen,
Right.
And then I was in Cleveland doing Shakespeare for the summer, and they called me, and they said, well, they want you to come and audition for American Buffalo. So, and every wonderful actor of the time, still wonderful actors. Matt Dillon, one of my favorite actors. A lot of guys were up for the part, and fortune fell my way, and I got the part. Elliot Martin was the producer, an excellent, top-shelf, elite producer. Arvin Brown directed it. Cliff James was Donnie, and we brought magic to the stage, especially Al.
Wow. Yeah, he seems tailor-made for Mamet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to get to the Buffalo production in just a second, but I understand that during the rehearsal process for Richard III, he was endless in his attempts to try new things with the character. What was new and fresh about his portrayal of Richard III?
Well, the thing about Al is, he's extremely resourceful. He's a very capable guy, If something isn't working, he's first trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. He never gives up. He's as tenacious as a bulldog with a bone in its mouth. He just does not give up. And, that's one of the things that all young actors can learn from him is his tenacity, which is, I think, served him very well. And, Shakespeare is a formidable task for anyone.
Right.
And, with a stellar reputation like his, it takes a lot of guts to get out there and try something that you may fail in. But that's one of the things that makes him great. One of the many things that makes him great. I'm personally most fond of his generosity. He's an extremely generous man, When you're working with him, oftentimes he has people over to his house, and he has these beautiful catered meals, and you go out and play touch football. And, he's just an extremely generous human being.
Yeah.
And most people don't know that about him, because they don't get the opportunity to work with him. But he's very generous and extremely sensitive man.
I've read that time and again, and we even heard from Richard Cox on Friday's show. And
love Richard.
Yeah, and he spoke to how completely helpful Pacino was, even off camera.
Absolutely.
Helping him with the scenes.
Absolutely.
I know that you teach Shakespeare quite extensively.
Yep.
And part of what I found so fascinating about Pacino's film Looking for Richard was that you saw the struggle. You saw the struggle that he went through just to understand what was trying to be expressed in those words. Mm-hmm. In your estimation, how do you break through your prejudices of Shakespeare and make the language your own? Is there a key secret to that, or is that a loaded question?
Well, I think you study it. I think you study it. I think you study the great ones that have done it before, and I think you stare at the page, and I think the words speak to you. Shakespeare was, if people don't know, and still is the greatest writer to have ever lived.
Yeah.
Every author, every novelist, every poet tips his hat and bows down to Shakespeare, because he wasn't just a great playwright, he was a great philosopher, a great poet, a great comedian, a great tragedian. He could do it all. And all you have to do is listen, really. That's the key to Shakespeare, is listen. And he'll teach you. If you speak the words properly, the acting takes care of itself.
Absolutely. So how did the Buffalo production compare to the Richard III production?
Well, American Buffalo was hugely successful. I mean, I'll never forget it as long as I live. The day the box office opened on Bleecker Street, the line was out to 6th Avenue. I mean, Al came into rehearsal and looked at us, and he was like, "Did you see that line?" Yeah, this is great. I mean, believe me, I've been in plays where one person has shown up in the audience. And when you work with Al, of course, you don't have to worry about that, because people come.
Yeah.
And, it was a very intensive process. There's only 3 characters on stage the whole time, and it's Mamet, the genius of David Mamet, the man who has taken language to another level. I mean, obviously a great playwright in his own right, and Al is, he's a taskmaster, and by that I mean, even after you're performing the play for a long time, he insists on rehearsals. Mm-hmm. You just keep rehearsing the thing, no matter what. It doesn't matter. Every other play you do, once it opens for the critics, that's basically it. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to rehearse anymore. They come in, they do the job, and that's it. Yeah. But not Al. He's always hungry for the truth, for more truth, deeper truths. deeper truths. He's always searching. And he inculcates that sense of discipline in people, and it was a very successful production. I mean, it was amazing every night to play to sold-out houses.
Yeah,
wonderful.
I've read of Pacino. I think he might have said this himself, that if he could only be in rehearsal for a play and not have to worry about performance, that would make him very happy.
Yeah, much to the chagrin of producers.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Although Elliot Martin is a great producer, he's one of the last producers of the old school where they really nurture and develop. Like we did American Buffalo in New Haven first. Mm-hmm. We developed it slowly, carefully. We took our time with it. He gave us the time. He gave us a very lengthy preview process before we opened for the critics. Nowadays a lot of producers, they're in a hurry.
Yeah.
And if you want to make something great, you can't be in a hurry.
Yeah, that's very rare to kind of nurture that process like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, is this true that I read that David Mamet actually has been known to sit in the house and stop a performance if his dialogue isn't correctly spoken word for word? Is that just folklore?
Not in our production. He just sat there with an unlit cigar in his mouth and seemed to be enjoying himself. His lines are very difficult to learn.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated poetical pattern that it follows, but if you throw in one extra syllable, it throws the whole scheme of the thing off.
It throws it off, yeah.
You got to be really specific.
I know that Pacino has said that it is challenging, but once you break through Mamet's dialogue and find that rhythm, it's fairly, as he called it, actor-proof. Do you agree with that?
Totally, just like with Shakespeare.
Yeah.
The great playwrights know how to do that. They know how to make it so that it's pretty hard to mess it up. If you just say what they want and mean what they say when they want it, then pretty much you'll be okay if you're listening.
Yeah.
But no, Dave was great. I mean, he came to her. He was so happy. I mean, this made him he was already known, but this made him a very successful man as a playwright, out doing his play. And no, he followed protocol, and the protocol in the theater is the playwright, if he has notes, goes to the director. Mm-hmm. The playwright doesn't speak to the actors except to say, good job or good show.
Right.
The protocol is that the playwright goes to the director goes to the actor. So if he ever had any notes, they came through Arvin Brown in that case.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about Injustice for All, and you give just a heartbreaking performance in that film. And you've talked about how the role came about for you, but what was the experience like working with Pacino in those scenes? Was the process different from, obviously, did you have rehearsal at all for that film?
Yeah, we did. We had 2 weeks of rehearsal, and Lee Strasberg was there, and we sat around a table, and Norman Jewison, another old-school director, really takes his time. And then, we got down there to shoot, the scenes, and early on I had to do that big emotional scene, and I was terrified. Okay, I mean, here I am with one of my heroes. I mean, I became Michael Corleone after I saw The Godfather. I walked around and I thought I was him. And there I am sitting in a room with him, and I'm shooting a scene with him, and I wasn't doing very well. I knew all my lines, but I wasn't in the moment. Mm-hmm. And Al knew that, and Norman knew that, and they were like, okay, everybody out of the room. They cleared the set, and Al said, let's just read it, like we've never seen it before.
Right.
So, like, he gave you that comfort zone, to sit down and just go back to basics and just read the script, and then I was able to relax. And I looked at him and I said, Al, I'm really confused. And he said, that's a good state of mind for an actor to be.
Norman Jewison directed that film, is he?
Yeah, Norman, terrific director.
He seems like a real actor's director. What kind of set does he maintain?
He's got a firm grip. He's got a firm grip on the set. Directing movies, I've only done one very short film, and I don't know if anyone will ever see it, but running a movie set, is a whole different. Walter Hill was an excellent director as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're guys that they have the command of this operation, but yet they're almost invisible.
Right.
And it's somehow they manage to walk that line of being both in total control and yet you don't even know they're there.
Mm. And
Norman was great with the actors because he would take you off to the side and speak to you probably the way Kazan used to do with his actors.
Wow.
Very, very personally. You know, like, how you doing? You know, are you okay? Are you relaxed? Do you need anything? Do you want some coffee? You need something to eat? Are you all right? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. No, you know, I'm nervous. You know, I'm a young kid and I'm trying to make my bones. I'm trying to cut my teeth, and here I am with Al Pacino. You know, it's a heightened situation.
Oh yeah.
But it was great, and you know, Al's been very good to me over the years. A couple of times I've contacted him for a letter of recommendation for a teaching job I might be applying for, or you know, and he recommended me for a play on Broadway at one point in my career. I did Awake and Sing on Broadway, and the conversation was apparently the director said, I got to find a kid to play, you know, the John Garfield part.
Right.
Mm. And Al said, well, what about Tommy Waits? And he said, no, he's too old. I was 29 at the time, and the character is 23. And Al's like, yeah, but he's got the stuff to do it. He's got the real stuff to do it.
Oh, wow.
So the story goes that they hired someone else, and the guy who they hired, whose name I can't remember, took a swing at the director first day of rehearsal. So they said, let's get Waits. I got the job. I opened to sensational reviews, and then I got a movie from it. And it was all because, you know, Al, I mean, he's got that kind of power, obviously, but he's very judicious. You know, he's not going to go around recommending people for things if they're not right for it.
Mm-hmm.
He's a man of integrity. You know, he's not going to say things he doesn't mean. He's not going to mean things he doesn't say.
Yeah.
You know, but he's just a great guy, and he's also, of course, one of the members of the Actors Studio where I work out of, and you know, and I have an acting school, the Thomas G. Waits Acting Studio. You can go to thomasgwaits.com, one word, thomasgwaits.com, and you can see, you know, everything about the school.
Yeah, I want you to tell us just a little bit about your acting school before you go.
It's really good. You know, it's a good thing. We have about, you know, 30 students altogether. We work out 2 times a week. We do a couple of shows every year, and we combine the method approach with the classical approach.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's a really good thing. You know, it's a great way to keep your pencil sharp, and I've helped a lot of people, you know, succeed. And you know, it's a tough industry to break into. But if you know what you're doing, you know, if you have your craft honed and your pencils are sharp, well, you have a better chance of going in there and making that impression on people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have the link up for your acting school. It's on our show notes on our Blog Talk Radio page and in our Movie Geeks United blog as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you very
joining
much
us tonight. It's been an honor to have you.
Hey, I really appreciate it. And you know, I understand you're interviewing Steve Bauer. He was terrific in Scarface.
Yes, he was.
Well, we're really
Richard Cox is
geeking out.
a terrific actor also.
Yes.
So make sure you give them my best, okay?
Thank you so
Will
much.
do. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.